Shortly after the student walked into the restaurant, I noticed he was heading straight for the counter seats without using the hand sanitizer placed at the entrance. I gently reminded him to sanitize his hands first. Ignoring my request, he proceeded to sit down. When I urged him again, the student retorted sharply, telling me to shut up because he had just washed his hands. His abrupt response left me quite taken aback, and the incident quickly captured the attention of other patrons, casting a sudden silence over the place. One customer even took to social media to complain, noting how our restaurant seemed overly insistent on hand sanitation, which they found annoying. This was echoed by another online comment about being scolded for the same reason, which led to an unpleasant exchange with the staff. Soon after, a video surfaced online showing a cockroach on our counter, allegedly crawling into a bowl of ramen. The person titled it "Delicious Cockroach Ramen," suggesting malicious intent through a potentially doctored image. This act was utterly despicable. Filled with anger and frustration from these unfounded accusations and harmful actions, I was determined to address this injustice. This restaurant, which had become a significant part of my life, was under attack, and I felt compelled to protect it. My name is Mia, a 38-year-old living with my husband, Mateo, of the same age, my mother-in-law, and our daughter Lily, who is in the 2nd grade. Mateo and I met during our sophomore year of high school and reconnected years later at culinary school. After we married, I chose to focus on raising our daughter while Mateo took over his family's Chinese restaurant following his father's passing. This restaurant wasn't just a business to us. It was a part of our family's legacy, which we cherished and were now determined to defend. Mateo and I always cherished the sumptuous dishes from his father's restaurant, and it was our shared passion for this culinary heritage that led us to manage the restaurant together. One day, a young university student approached us, seeking a part-time job. He was in his 2nd year at a nearby university and expressed a deep fondness for our food, eager to be part of our team. Initially, we hesitated since our budget was tight and we couldn't really afford extra help. However, his determination was touching. He even offered to work for less than usual. Sensing his genuine appreciation for our food, I decided to give him a chance. This young man was Aiden. Aiden came from a modest background, raised by a single mother who was physically disabled and relied on a scholarship to attend university. Each evening after his shift, he would order a meal to take home. Curious, I once asked him about this routine. He explained that his mother adored our Chinese cuisine, but couldn't visit the restaurant due to her condition, so he brought the food home to her. Touched by his story, my husband Mateo began preparing double portions for him to take home, free of charge. We both felt it was important to share the joy of our dishes with as many people as possible, especially those who appreciated them so much. Amid these warm exchanges, a contrasting incident occurred. A blonde college student entered the restaurant and headed straight for the counter, ignoring my reminder to use the hand sanitizer provided at the entrance. When I insisted, he retorted rudely, leaving me startled and the restaurant silent. I had never experienced such confrontation, and it left me momentarily paralyzed with fear. From the kitchen, Mateo addressed the student, reinforcing our hygiene policy. Reluctantly, the student complied, but not without showing overt disdain. My nerves were still rattled, so Aiden stepped in to take his order, showing solidarity and support. The student ordered ramen immersed in his smartphone and departed with a smug smile after eating. Lately, we've noticed a decline in customers. Initially, I thought it might be due to COVID-19, which had indeed reduced our foot traffic somewhat. But considering we were the only Chinese restaurant in the area and had a loyal base of regular patrons, the drop wasn't as steep as feared. It was clear that the restaurant still held a special place in the community, supported by those who cherished not just our food, but the warmth and care we put into serving in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had implemented several safety measures at our restaurant, including thorough sanitizing routines and installing acrylic barriers on each table. These precautions were necessary, yet we noticed that many customers were opting to stay home, likely due to concerns about the virus. It was a challenging situation, and there wasn't much we could do to change their minds about venturing out. Mateo and I discussed the possibility of starting a delivery service to adapt to the changing circumstances, as people were still cautious about dining out. We hoped that by offering delivery, we could continue serving our dishes to the community, even if they preferred to eat at home. The candy store next door was experiencing similar struggles, a reminder that the pandemic was taking a toll on everyone, particularly businesses in the service industry. Over the next few weeks, our customer numbers dwindled further, causing even Mateo to grow anxious about our future. One day, Josh burst into the restaurant, visibly upset, and urgently showed us a video on his phone. The footage was alarming. It depicted a cockroach being placed into a bowl of ramen at our counter. The video, titled "Delicious Cockroach Ramen," prominently featured our restaurant's logo, and although the person in the video had their face blurred, Mateo's distinctive physique made it clear he was being framed as the culprit. Our kitchen was recognizable in the background, confirming the setting was indeed our restaurant. The comments on the video were filled with derogatory remarks, mocking our cleanliness and even dubbing us a bug diner. It was evident that someone had maliciously edited photos or videos to fabricate this damaging narrative. This act of defamation was heart-wrenching. All we ever wanted was to share our love for food with our patrons, and to face such a baseless attack was devastating. We were determined not to let this go. Despite the shock, we opened the restaurant the next day, hoping for some semblance of normalcy. Usually, a few early customers would trickle in, but that day, no one came. I looked out at Main Street from inside the restaurant and noticed people glancing and smirking as they passed by. Stepping outside, I saw groups of people gathered around, some taking photos and others whispering. Fearing another social media smear, I rushed back inside to check the latest post. Sure enough, there were recent uploads showing the vicinity of our restaurant and the nearby subway station, with captions hinting at the location of the so-called Bug Chinese restaurant. Given that we were the only Chinese restaurant near that subway station, the connection was unmistakable. This situation was more than just a challenge. It was a crisis that threatened the very essence of our family business. We had to find a way to clear our name and restore the reputation that we had lovingly built over the years. Despite my reluctance, I couldn't help but check the comments on the social media posts that were blatantly referring to our restaurant. People were making harsh comments, recalling their past experiences with our food and expressing disbelief and disgust, falsely believing we served bugs. One person wrote, "Isn't that the Bug Chinese place near the west exit of the station? I've eaten their fried rice before. I'm never going there again." Another lamented, "I used to think their food was good, but this is just disgusting." It was clear that such damaging rumors were the reason our customer base had dwindled. Heartbroken by the online backlash, we made the difficult decision to temporarily close our restaurant. A few days into the closure, I stepped outside early one morning to take out the trash, only to find garbage strewn across the front of our restaurant. As I began to clean up, my heart sank when I noticed "Bug-infested place" spray-painted in bold red letters across the entrance shutter. Overwhelmed by the sight, I dropped the broom and stood there, lost in despair. Returning home dejected, I found Mateo distressed and slumped over. Concerned, I asked him what was wrong. He shared that one of our suppliers, who had been with us since his father's time, had decided to sever ties with our restaurant. The reason was painfully clear: a photo of a delivery box bearing the supplier's name, placed unassumingly at our back entrance, had been circulated online. This led to them being harassed with calls condemning their association with our bug-filled restaurant. To protect them from further trouble, Mateo had made the heart-wrenching decision to discontinue our long-standing business relationship. Mateo looked at me, his expression one of deep sorrow, and suggested, "Mia, it's okay. Thank you for everything. Let's close the restaurant and find a quiet place to start over." The idea of shutting down what we had built and cherished seemed unbearable. I couldn't accept giving up so easily. Seeing the somber faces of my husband and mother-in-law, I felt a surge of determination. "I'll start working," I declared, urging Mateo to keep the restaurant open. "This is the place your father poured his heart into. Please, let's not let it go. We can get through this." We spent the night discussing our options, fueled by a mix of despair and resolve. Matteo reassured me, "We'll try a little longer." With renewed vigor, we found a new supplier and I took a job at a nearby office to help support our financial recovery. Matteo introduced new items to the menu and focused on providing personal, heartfelt service to our remaining loyal customers. Despite the adversity we faced, we were not ready to give up on the legacy that meant so much to us and to the community we serve. The financial strain from the false rumors had forced us to make a heart-wrenching decision. We could no longer afford to pay Josh, our dedicated part-timer. With a promise to call him back when things stabilized, Matteo and my mother-in-law stepped in to manage the restaurant while I sought employment elsewhere to help support our family. One evening after returning from work, my mother-in-law, wearing a solemn expression, called me into the living room for a serious discussion. As I sat down, she shared some distressing news about our daughter, Lily. She had been crying in her room earlier, and upon comforting her, my mother-in-law learned that Lily was being bullied at school. The situation had escalated that morning when Lily discovered a plastic bag filled with dead roaches inside her desk. When she instinctively threw it to the floor, a classmate cruelly remarked, "Don't throw that here. Use it in your restaurant since it's a bug Chinese place, right?" My heart sank as my mother-in-law handed me a piece of paper that had been stuck to Lily's backpack, which cruelly labeled her Bug Girl. Lily had unknowingly brought this home, and the realization had left her inconsolable. The nickname spawned by the malicious online rumors about our restaurant had become a chant among her peers, constantly calling her Bug Girl and taunting her with images from the fabricated social media posts. Despite her attempts to refute the claims, the pictures had convinced her classmates, and nobody believed her truth. The bullying had reached a breaking point when Lily found the derogatory note on her backpack. Later that night, I went to her room and held my sobbing daughter close, comforting her as best as I could, apologizing for the pain she was enduring because of our family situation. We cried together until she fell asleep, her distress palpable and heartbreaking. Following that night, Lily couldn't face going to school and started to skip her classes. I decided to take action and met with her teacher, explaining the severity of the bullying. He promised to address the issue immediately and asked me to keep him informed about any developments at home. As I left the school, I noticed someone had written "bug" over her locker nameplate. With tears streaming down my face, I tried desperately to scrub the word off with a wet wipe, but the mark was stubborn. Back at home, the harassment towards our restaurant persisted, and the stress began to take a significant toll on our family. Lily withdrew to her room, becoming increasingly isolated. My mother-in-law, visibly stressed, started visiting the hospital frequently and began taking medication. Meanwhile, Matteo, unable to cope with the mounting pressure, resorted to drinking heavily each night, often falling asleep right after. Amidst this family crisis, I received notice from my workplace about a mandatory all-staff training session. Despite the chaos at home, I was obligated to attend, leaving me torn between my professional responsibilities and the deepening personal turmoil. The atmosphere in our home grew heavier each day, weighed down by silence and the shadows of our struggles. Attending the training wasn't something I was keen on, given everything that was happening, but I couldn't risk losing my job, so I reluctantly agreed to participate in the 3-day workshop. On the second evening, after everyone had finished dinner and was dispersing to their rooms, one of the executives pulled me aside. He said he needed to discuss some work matters and invited me into his hotel room. Normally, I would never enter a man's room alone, but I felt overwhelmed and vulnerable, so I followed him, assuming it was strictly professional. Once inside, he offered me a drink and soon brought up the struggles of my restaurant, revealing that my business woes were known even here. Exhausted and on edge, I just listened. He then handed me an envelope from the table, explaining it contained a job offer and $1,000 as a bonus if I accepted. As he placed his hand on my shoulder, I froze. Hearing the offer, part of me considered how much that money could help my family. But then he whispered something about never imagining I had a child. The mention of a child snapped me back to reality. Visions of my husband, my mother-in-law, and Lily flashed through my mind. I immediately pushed his hand away and fled the room. In a rush, I grabbed my belongings and left the training facility without looking back. Outside, it was raining heavily. The cold rain mixed with my tears as I ran towards the nearest station, berating myself for even stepping into that room. Could it have been the desperation for money that clouded my judgment? No, that wasn't me. I felt utterly foolish and guilty, especially thinking of how this would betray Josh's trust and the commitment we had to our family and employees. As I ran, my phone rang. It was Lily. Her voice was frantic as she told me that her grandmother had kicked her out of the house. I felt a surge of panic. Lily said her father had been asleep since the day before and wasn't waking up. I urged her to stay put and raced home as fast as I could, calling my house and Mateo repeatedly, but no one answered. When I finally reached home, I found Lily sitting outside the door, next to the faint remnants of the spray-painted slander. She was holding a kid's cell phone, the only thing her grandmother had given her when she told her to leave. My heart raced as I unlocked the door and ushered her inside. The house was eerily dark. I sent Lily to her room and turned on the living room lights, only to discover my mother-in-law lying motionless next to the table. I rushed to her side, calling her name in a panic, hoping she would respond. When I discovered my mother-in-law unresponsive, a chilling sense of urgency overcame me. Beside her, a glass with residual water and an empty packet of pills laid ominously on the table, painting a grim picture of what might have happened. Fearing the worst in overdose, I frantically dialed 911. After calling for help, I hurried upstairs to check on Mateo, who I found slumped over his desk, unresponsive. Shaking him vigorously, he slowly came to and explained groggily that he had been working on bills last night when his mother brought him a cup of hot coffee. After drinking it, he was overcome with an unexplainable sleepiness. With concern mounting, I relayed the dire situation with his mother, and we both rushed downstairs where he tried desperately to rouse her. As emergency responders attended to her, I noticed a note left on the table, penned in shaky handwriting. It read, "Mateo, Mia, I'm truly grateful for both of you for taking care of this place. I can't continue here anymore. I haven't touched my husband's life insurance, so with my savings, you both can start a new life somewhere else. Please be happy. Thank you truly from the bottom of my heart." Moments later, paramedics arrived and quickly assessed that she was in a coma. They rushed her to the hospital. Leaving Lily at home, Mateo and I followed in a state of shock and despair. At the hospital, they managed to stabilize her by pumping her stomach, and after 3 harrowing days, she regained consciousness and was moved to a regular room. In the hospital room, overcome with emotion, I asked her, "Why did you try to end your life?" "We can't be happy without you." My voice broke as the tears came, unable to hold back the flood of emotions. Mateo sat silently by her side while she, too, began to cry. The room was filled with a heavy, somber air as we all grappled with the depth of our despair. Later, she explained that she had drugged Mateo's coffee to make him sleep through her intended departure. She had sent Lily away to spare her the sight and to ensure I would come home quickly. This calculated act of desperation was her distorted attempt to free us from the burden she felt she had become. In the days following, as Mateo and I contemplated the closure of our once thriving restaurant, Josh, our former part-timer, came to visit. "Long time no see," I greeted him. He brought news. The perpetrator behind the damaging social media posts had been identified. It was the blonde college senior who had previously caused a scene at our restaurant. His actions had been driven by a vendetta against us. Despite the revelation, the damage to our reputation and spirits was profound. "We're thinking of closing the shop," Mateo said with a heavy sigh, his gaze lingering around the empty restaurant. "After all the bad publicity, it's hard to bounce back. We've had our share of troubles and are just worn out. We did our best, but it seems like it wasn't enough," he added apologetically. "If we ever get back on track, please come visit us again," I told Josh, holding on to a sliver of hope that perhaps one day we might reclaim the joy and community our restaurant once brought to our lives. Forcing a smile, I tried to mask the despair as Josh looked at me earnestly and said, "I owe a lot to you too. I won't let this shop go under, I promise." His determination was palpable as he stood up suddenly, his expression steely, and then he swiftly left our home. A few days later, while retrieving the morning newspaper, Mateo found several letters mixed in with the mail. Initially skeptical, thinking they might be another set of pranks, he was about to discard them when one postcard caught his eye. It read, "I missed the ramen from your restaurant." Intrigued, he began reading the other letters, and to our surprise, each one expressed hope and support for our shop's revival. It was a moment of unexpected solidarity that puzzled us, as we couldn't fathom where all these letters had come from. The following day, Josh returned with a broad grin, announcing that blonde dude is quitting school. When we pressed him for details, he explained that the negative fallout from the social media post had backfired on the blonde student. Josh had taken it upon himself to highlight the criticisms of that post, rallying support against it. His efforts had sparked a wider recognition of the injustice. And soon, a movement to identify the troublemaker gained momentum. Josh and a few of his college friends had been instrumental in this turn of events. They started by sharing images of a restaurant, speculating that the culprit might be from that neighborhood. During their investigation, they heard about a blonde student bragging about how his post had gone viral. Remembering this student's previous disruptive behavior at our restaurant, Josh suspected a link and began digging into his social media activities. They hit pay dirt when they found a post from the student complaining about our restaurant's hand sanitizer policy, which matched his behavior during his visit. The pieces clicked together, confirming his identity. Armed with this information, Josh was determined to expose the student's malicious actions. He discussed the situation with a friend who knew a popular TikTok specializing in current events, with a following of 620,000 subscribers. The TikTok agreed to create a video detailing how a beloved local restaurant was being undermined by the student's vindictive actions. The video took off instantly, propelled by the TikTok's significant influence. The student's social media accounts faced overwhelming backlash, leading him to delete his accounts. But the damage was done, his actions had been widely exposed, and he found himself in an inescapable bind. After Josh had first shared the information, a sharp-eyed netizen managed to identify the blonde student and posted about it. This chain of events rallied the community around our restaurant, showing us a wave of support we hadn't anticipated, and renewing our hope in a time filled with despair. As the situation escalated, the details of the blonde student's life were widely disseminated across social media platforms. His age, college, home address, photographs, and even the name of the company where he had recently secured a job offer were all exposed. The backlash from the online community was severe and unrelenting. The student began to receive threatening letters at his home. A prominent TikTok, known for stirring controversy, released a video condemning the student's actions against the Chinese restaurant. This video further inflamed public sentiment, leading to several confrontations. The TikTok and others frequently ambushed the students' parents at their home, aggressively questioning their parenting skills and filming these encounters. Police intervention became necessary as people, appearing to be content creators, loitered around the student's residence, filming his family's movements and scrutinizing every detail of their lives. This intense scrutiny included their mail and any interactions they had outside their home. When the blonde student finally lost his composure and confronted one of the TikToks, this confrontation was also captured on camera and swiftly uploaded, adding fuel to the already raging fire. This public spectacle effectively prevented him from any further retaliation. The repercussions of these events were devastating for the student and his family, who faced continual harassment. The university he attended was not spared from the controversy. Its website became a forum for public outrage, with numerous complaints about the student's behavior and scathing remarks questioning the institution's credibility in educating responsible individuals. Comments like, "Does your university really send out such lousy students into society like flies?" and demands for the dean's opinion were rampant. The university administration called the student and his parents in for a meeting to verify the facts, warning them that any continuation of these issues online would be a significant nuisance and could force the university to take decisive actions against him. Moreover, the incident reached the company that had extended a job offer to the student. Amidst a flood of public outcry, many contacted the company, questioning the appropriateness of employing someone involved in such a scandal and suggesting they reconsider their offer. Influenced by the intense public pressure and the negative attention, the company allegedly rescinded the job offer. The student's father's business also came under scrutiny. His company's website was bombarded with similar complaints, and he found himself having to respond to inquiries about the incident, further illustrating the widespread impact of the student's initial actions. The family, caught in the relentless glare of public scrutiny and online vitriol, faced a series of ongoing challenges that seemed to have no end in sight. The scandal surrounding the blonde student had profound repercussions that extended far beyond his own immediate actions. His father, in line with company policies, received a stern warning to keep personal dramas from affecting the business. Additionally, the student's older sister faced her own set of challenges when an anonymous letter detailing her brother's misconduct was sent to her fiancé's home. The revelations led to the unfortunate cancellation of her engagement. In the wake of these events, the student eventually withdrew from university and took up part-time work, but the strain on his family was unmistakable. Their home became a site of frequent loud arguments and the distressing sounds of objects being broken. Eventually, the student left his family home, and his current whereabouts remain unknown. Josh, reflecting on the situation, acknowledged learning a painful lesson about the perils of the internet and the rapid escalation of online actions into real-world consequences. Despite the turmoil, the outpouring of support from the community, including encouraging letters and a viral video from a popular TikTok advocating for our restaurant, inspired us to reopen our doors. The TikTok's endorsement brought a new wave of younger customers, rejuvenating our business. Even my daughter saw a silver lining when her teacher informed us that her classmates wanted to apologize. During a school visit, the students expressed their regrets and their new understanding, sparked partly by the same TikTok's influence, showing just how impactful digital platforms can be. With the restaurant bustling again, I left my office job to devote more time to our family business. Josh resumed his role as a part-time worker, and even my mother-in-law found herself helping out more often, drawn by the surge of patrons. Our family has been deeply touched by the community's support. Every day, as I greet our customers with a warm smile, I'm filled with gratitude, hoping they enjoy the culinary delights my husband prepares. It's a testament to the resilience and unity that we've experienced, reminding us all of the strength found in community and second chances.